Welcome to a new show, Degrees Between Us. I'm your host, Professor Keenan Hardert. I'm going to be joined by a bunch of my students, and I'm breaking the fourth wall right now because this is the first episode of this. I would say the large idea is simply to talk about education, maybe higher ed, the journey herein, what we do with 4 years here, and if we are all actually crazy, which I'm going to hope is not fully true, except the good parts. And honestly, where we're at right here is Minnesota State University. We're a regional state school. We are not income restricted, for example. We are primarily teaching place, and I think we put together a great deal here. And I bet institutions all over the place do the same. And set it off, and we're going to share the story of the American student. I will try to talk as little as possible, but I do enjoy talking. As you can imagine, I'm in a podcast, so hooray. Anyway, I'd like to intro our first ever guest, Monica Montejo. So we've had each other in how many classes? Probably like
three.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Genetics, pathophys, and cancer biology, like all a bunch of fun stuff. Definitely, you've shown resilience each time you've been in, because I do not lead. You can say it in the mic. I do not lead easy classes, and I will not apologize to that.
No, they're definitely challenging.
Yeah, happens to the best of us. And like, I think part of my like growing phase through college was like realizing like, oh, like the harder ones are the ones that I like found the most like, oh man, that was awesome in, basically. So anyway, go ahead and introduce yourself and like kind of your path before MSU and how'd you get here?
Ooh, so my name is Monica Montejo. And then just kind of my pathway is I went to the University of Minnesota for half a semester, had to drop out for a little bit for family reasons. And then a year later, I came here. So yeah.
Nice.
And then just biomed major and 1 semester left to go.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Listeners probably want to know, like, listeners probably want to know what the difference between U of M and Minnesota State is. U of M's in the cities, and it's got like the big fancy kind of campus. Not that we're not fancy, but, and if you ever want to break the fourth wall, it's funny too.
Just kind of like.
Yeah.
No, the U of M is definitely really big. It feels pretty scary.
Okay.
Trying to go in there and just trying to find your way. And it really feels, unless you really know somebody there, it's not personable. It's not very connective. Whereas here at MSU, you can come in, you can kind of just like make that one-on-one type of connection, and then you can, see people easier. I always see my classmates more often, and so it's kind of like a nicer route.
Nice. No, and I mean, that's people honestly don't assume that about us because we are a larger school.
Yes.
And I mean, genetics was 95 students.
Yep.
But you spoke about like those connections you did find in school. What were some of those like opportunities? So a lot of people will ask like, well, I don't know how to meet anybody. I don't know what to do. Like, what were a few of those first ones?
Well, I mean, for starters, the class sizes here is a lot smaller. That, and you have like you and other professors, you guys are more like, hey, come in during my office hours, like come in and talk to me. Here's my open hour schedules. Here's how you can meet me. Whereas like compared to the U of M or other larger schools, it's really hard to like go in and see the professors. And to them, I don't want to say it, but sometimes it's money driven. It kind of feels like that. So.
Well, I mean, yeah, and we're getting right into one of the main things that's going to, is sort of the higher ed like issue, which is, hey, where's all this money coming from, all this stuff. I'll say it right here as a person who I went to Carleton College, which is a small liberal arts school, and I kind of just thought it would be cool and got a bunch of loans. Oops. So I'm still paying those. So be smart. Don't go to private school if they don't give you enough money. Loved Carleton. But the finance side of it is one of the main driving like kind of forces of things. As much as you would want to share with somebody, what would you tell them like as you prepare for college? What should you look for in college if money is, kind of one of the priorities? Didn't have to be one of yours, but what would you share with somebody incoming to school?
So anybody coming into school that is a low income or is worried about income, I think don't be afraid of going to a school that is cheaper. Don't be afraid, because you hear a lot of stigmas like, oh, MSU, it's so close to your home, you're never going to grow out of your phases. And it's like, I've been growing here, and then like grew up in high school here. Like I went to high school here, and like definitely don't feel that.
Yeah.
I don't feel that weird, like I'm still a child or something like
Okay.
that. Whatever. Yeah, it's like a weird thing
Okay.
that high school students have where it's like, oh, you're going to go to a college nearby. That's kind of weird. Like you're not growing.
Yeah, I always well, and like I bucked that trend by going out of Colorado is where I'm from, and I ended up in Minnesota of all places. It was tough though, regardless. Like that first semester was like just hellish for me. Like I was just like sick and like, oh, I just want to go home kind of thing. But it did take that push to do that. And that's so funny you mentioned that because like most Minnesotan students that I've met want to go to U of M for grad school stuff, no matter what. Like
Yeah.
it's the only option to some of them. But I mean, I think it's just part of the, like you said, the growing cycle where it's like, oh, I don't want to go too close. I don't want to do this, things like that. Given that too, and that's kind of one of the first like kind of misconceptions type of thing of higher ed. What are other ones that you think that if you could just tell the world, like, here's what I think you think of higher ed, but like, here's what we kind of spend our day doing instead, like.
What they think of higher ed, it's kind of weird because it's like, I don't know, some people think that you're very like prestigious and like you think of yourself that you're better than other people. And this is super weird. I think I went to a different club, like completely random, but I went to a club here and then not here, but I think in a different area. And I told them, I was like, oh yeah, I go to MSU and I was like, I'm a biomed major. And they're like, oh, you must have this, you must have this, you must do this. It's like, no,
Yeah.
it's like, I'm just like you.
Yeah, no, it's, I think, yeah, and I think that's like one of the things that's, I don't know. I think the problem is, and I have a book up there called Unscientific American, like it kind of calls out, it's like, hey, one of the hardest things is that you will hear really loud voices from higher ed, literally, yeah, calling people stupid. And then those voices amplify, and it's like, that must be what everybody thinks. God, no. We're all just trying to survive out here. We're fighting for our lives out here. We're just studying and doing our thing. I think like day-to-day life, people kind of sometimes assume on a college campus, like nobody goes to class actually. That part of that's true for some people. We like lesson about crazy stuff. I don't know. I read some hilarious stuff, but like really like in most of our biology classes and biomed classes, we get to see some really amazing stories, really cool content, but like, would you call it easy or would you call it like
No.
not easy?
I mean,
it's like,
I think it's really cool because you definitely get to challenge yourself in ways that I feel like you didn't know you could. And you try to find new ways to learn. You know, you're relearning how to learn when you're in college, basically. You know, you're trying to find new pathways, you're making new connections, and it's challenging, but it's a good challenging.
right.
Because
Like,
the reward you feel when you get a good grade on a really difficult class, it's amazing. I
Yeah.
mean,
no, and like I think that's the beauty, that's the unseen part of it. It's like I think one of the cool things is that you can debate what intelligence and smartness is in so many ways. Like I would never try and fix a downed power line. I have a friend who is a lineman. He knows exactly how to surgery that thing up. And I'm like, I wouldn't even know where to start. Like I can barely change my tire, man. Like, and I mean, just look around. I think part of the fact is like look at the office. Like I'm not there isn't mahogany anywhere. Yeah, we're just kind of doing our thing. There's all my books. I've read at least 75% of them, but even then I'm a slow reader. I'm messy. I'm kind of, I don't know. Do I fit the professor mold that you would think?
no,
Right.
not really.
Oh no, you're smiling. Yeah, don't say more. But it's just that I really like this job. I think I am strange in it because I was not a good student. I was like a B student, just straight. I think like you said, had the same journey where I was like, I need to see another way to do this if I want to get to the higher levels of what I want to do. And it was pretty clear. My mom was a teacher. I immediately was like, I'm never going to teach. I got to Carleton and I had professors that I was like, I want to do what she does. I want to do what that guy does. And that was it for me. And I knew that I needed to build that foundation to get to that point. But you're right. I had to change and like figure a lot of stuff out. And growing up in Western Colorado, I did have to kind of come out of my bubble, to say the least, just because everybody I went to high school with was kind of the same a little bit, which I don't know. I mean, helped and hurt, and I mean, it hurt a lot of ways to break through some of those walls, to say the least. But be good.
Yeah. No, I think the cool thing about, smaller schools like this and just, good people in general that are actually, there's a lot of misconceptions that, like I don't want to say higher educated people, but people want to learn more. That's the
Right.
term I want to use. People want to learn more. We're all trying to learn more. They, are selfish. They don't like to think of others. But then when you think about the success stories of a lot of higher level degreed people,
Mm.
it's always the people like professors. Like you saw a professor that was, they were doing such a good job and they were like, you were like, I wanted to be that person. I wanted to do that. And I think that's what some people just don't get is that there are other the only way you can how do I explain? It's like
Yeah. No, you're good.
it's
It's
like
like you see a path forward and that they found that path and that, like, even if that's not the exact path you would take, they're like having somebody along that to guide you towards whatever you're going for
yeah,
can help. I mean, it's the
yeah,
same reason like why, having a coach helps in sports, for example.
exactly.
And you
Yeah.
brought up a really strong point about the fact that like a degree is a degree. And like that's even in the title of the show. You can learn at any time. And that's like that is the beauty of this whole thing. And I think one of the stranger things that did happen was, I mean, 10 years ago when the Khan Academies started showing up, and I love Khan Academy as a professor. Like it's a perfect review source. I love it. Like it's seeing something twice is what you
Yeah.
technically need to learn something. Like there's no first time in a lot of cases for most people. Um, and this is the hard part that I think like maybe our role is, but this is where I would actually kind of ask your expectations as a student. I know that it would be easier as a professor to just be like, everybody gets an A. I'm not going to push you, and I really want you guys to like me. I think we have a good time, but I do have the expectation of like, you got to push. And I think that was because I didn't know how to swim and I had to figure it out real quick my freshman and sophomore year. But
No,
in
it's
terms of
good.
student expectations, did that change for you? Did you always have that trajectory? Like,
I mean, for some classes, go back to U of M. I always go back to U of M.
yeah,
But I think for some classes, for some professors, they just didn't care. It was just a letter grade that you were getting, They didn't need to describe things. Um, and it just felt unchallenging, just to get an A and all you had to do was just memorize a couple of things,
yeah.
you know? Whereas when you get some professors that challenge you and it just feels better. I don't know how to describe it. It's
I think, yeah, I brought this up to the big genetics class once. I was like, hey, have you all ever played a video game? And it's like a story video game. And it's like, oh, make choice A or B. But then you watch the YouTube and it was the same ending for both. And that's kind of what a really like if a class didn't matter, if there were no assessments, if there weren't anything, you could push yourself and learn and do that. But if you're not in that position, do or die, you may not, and you may like kind of falter on that. And again, that gets me into some situations that aren't as happy all the time. And I mean, failure is part of this, but the beauty of it is like it's good to fail while you're
yeah.
good to
I
fail
mean,
while
that's
you're
how you
young and
learn.
you're in this spot that we can actually like fix. Oh shoot! Now we're gonna have a class. Can you close that door? Nice. This is kick ass. Anyway, sorry, class got out. Anyway, and they were gonna be noisy. Um, you did bring up a good point too, that I'm not going to sit here and defend every professor. Like everybody, a lot of people listening here have probably had a really rough experience. Not gonna lie, there's always going to be tough stuff and tough people with working and stuff. In most cases, I'll vouch though, most of your professors are trying their best, trying to put something forward. I can't speak for the motivations of everybody, but that's always my goal with you all and you guys is to just say like, hey, whatever we've got rolling, I have it backed up in evidence. I want to support you with this and I want to push you to that next level. And like being in that big genetics 200 level class, like that's the goal is like genetics keeps happening, development, immunology, evolution, ecology, all these big ones, cancer bio. My favorite subject, domestication. We share our love of adopted dogs, for example.
Yeah.
I think on my website I have a scout picture of Pomeranian. But yeah, so it is part of that. This brings us back to the price thing and why you're like in that position. You've already mentioned community, and that's been with students and with professors. That's kind of like how a lot of the time can actually be spent. I mean, the test that we just took, because we
Yeah.
did just finish a pathophysiology test today. I think this kind of bridges into the AI thing, which people are going to ask, well, can't the system just diagnose everything?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say it like this. Like I work in the emergency room,
Mhm.
right?
Oh, that's
At
right,
Mayo
yeah.
here in Mankato. And it's I think sometimes we have dabbled in the AI system a little bit and it's not
Okay.
exact. I
What do
mean,
you mind telling us which AI system, or is Mayo going to
so
come get us?
it's like I don't know. But it's like I'll put an example because it's not super exact that I know of, but like staffing wise. So
Oh, like
like
schedules.
scheduling,
Dang.
staffing wise. So if they see that like the high level of patients, you need more staff, right? But if you have low level of patients, you need less staff.
Right.
But that's
Oh.
the AI trying to do all that stuff.
Does it try to predict like the ED trends? Like weekends
I
are
think so.
higher?
Sometimes,
Oh,
yeah.
that's kind of cool to be honest. But what happens?
But it's like, I don't know, people are different.
Yeah.
People, you know what I mean? So it's like if you see a patient, that has some sort of mental health type of issue,
hmm
depending on their level, you need more people.
Got it. Yeah.
But the AI system sees it as one person.
Oh, okay. So it cannot assign severity or extra resources to a single unit yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
And that's where the challenge is.
right. And I think like if you spend enough time on like AI Twitter, like I unfortunately have started, it is like, well, it'll do that eventually.
It's not there yet.
Yeah, another yeah, still about a quadrillion connections in the brain because each little leg of the neuron is actually connecting too. That was a fun 2021 Nobel Prize. Anyway, um, back to kind of like that idea is that like, oh, like, higher ed's not going to matter, blah, 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 'cause the AI is going to take over for us. Number one, if that happens, shoot. Number two, you're training to be like in medicine, which is still psychomotor. And I'm not letting a robot tear me up in there, okay? I'm not, even though like I'm kind of all about the self-driving cars because I do think that drivers are bad. Ultimately, I'm a Colorado person, so I drive really slow. And I'm like, stop driving fast. You're tailgating. Stop it. But with the AI, like the psychomotor stuff and the decision making and the teamwork side of it, the teamwork part, and that's something that I think even when it's forced in college, which can be unfortunate. We've all had the group project that sucked. I
But you're
think,
improving in communication.
yeah, you're improving a lot and stuff. And I mean, you've probably worked with the ED, and like I know some of those guys working there too. Not everybody's a friendly butterfly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 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 And
which
AI,
is fine.
they can't solve that.
Yeah, no, and you can't. Yeah, can't solve that, and it's okay. People are stressed. There's usually about like one or two of them in each work team, and that's
Yes.
okay.
Gosh.
In terms of like future proofing education from AI, though, the strange things that I've read has been, and I think I've shared with you guys that I do want you guys to pursue like humanities writing type of stuff because it's like this weird pure form of unassailable humanism, which means like the human is the cool thing. I mean, even what we're doing right now is not possible by AI. Like
Exactly.
that's kind of why like this is sort of like your like personal statement almost right now, like just a conversation that we're like kind of having on something pretty big, to be honest. And again, we'll carry on in future episodes, but regardless, and I know like this actually transitions to one of our last things because I do want to let you go because we both have dogs to let out and walk, I assume. One thing that's happening is that so on number 6 where I've got, yeah, and we do keep notes, it's fine. Prioritizing workforce readiness versus creative on your feet, and then like the teamwork stuff. Like the workforce thing is pretty teamworky. Some labs I've designed are very workforce prepared, ready, like follow this protocol, bam, that. But I remember one lab, I was like, create this protocol based on the 3 things we know how to do. Good luck. I had some people melt, but I had others that were not exam people just rise to the occasion. Like I'd never seen it. I'll call him out by name. Tim was the student I had. Great kid, good at exams, but man, he was in the lab and it was like awesome. But what would you say as a student, like your experiences with that debate has kind of been, I don't know.
Like in terms of like
how, like, what have you taken from the labs that you were like, that's valuable, or class even?
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll do a simple one. So like
Okay.
the Lancet procedures where you
Yeah.
like test your blood levels and
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that, like the antibodies and stuff like that. That's
Mhm.
something you need to know. I mean,
Yeah.
in medicine, you need to know it. In research, you probably need to figure out how to draw blood and stuff like that. It's good to know, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like simple stuff like that that allows you to kind of prepare for the workforce.
Mhm.
I think definitely in terms of like when we were doing dissections, doing like the rat,
Oh,
was it
yeah,
the
and
mouse
cancer.
dissection? Yeah.
Here, wait, go closer to the mic.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, like the
Um,
mouse dissection.
yeah. Hey, I appreciate, good. That is the first time I've ever had a group of students cheer.
We were having so much fun.
That was good. And those, well, and like, and I didn't kill the rats. They were dead. They were in a freezer and they were going to get thrown away.
No,
So I
and
was
it,
like, seeing.
yeah, and we weren't like disrespecting the
No, and
mouse or
that's,
anything like
yeah.
that. It was more of just like you were so interested in seeing the anatomy of it and like
Oh, yeah.
what can happen and stuff like that. But it's just, stuff like that. Or like I think human physiology, do the turtle.
Yeah, you guys
heart.
love the turtle heart demo.
Like the turtle heart demo. I mean, but obviously you respect it, but
Yeah.
you're just learning about it, and it just makes everything a lot better.
I'll admit, so I'll provide some context. We do a heart demonstration in human phys lab here at MSU, and the professor, me, has to do the lethal injection of the turtle. Luckily, it's dead when all this other stuff happens,
Yeah.
but you do get to see the heart coming out and like beating, and you put drugs on it. You see the tensile strength when it beats harder, type of stuff. Like, I don't know. That keels back to the kind of the cool experiences that like are like once a semester for a lot of people that are
Yes.
like, I never saw that. And
Well,
that was
and
awesome.
I feel like that could be one of the like the key like memory, like a core memory.
Yeah.
Like this is
Like
what I
inside
want to
out.
do, or like this is not what
Yeah.
I want to do.
Yeah, you know my core memory. Did I tell you that? I was
What
all
was it?
pre-med at Carleton,
Yeah.
and I was like, and we opened some, I can't remember if it was a frog, I think it was a frog or a lizard or something, and I was like, I'm out of this. I'm never doing medicine. I'm never cutting anything open again. I held out some hope of being a veterinarian, but then I graduated with 10 contact hours at the animal shelter, and I was like, oh, that's done. Anyway, and moving on from that, but yeah, so I think just in the main, and we'll kind of end on just kind of like the main thing that a lot of people probably don't recognize or know is just what our day to day is. It's not some weird like, we go from like meeting to protest to like this or something. We're
No.
too busy. And if I could indoctrinate my students to read the syllabus, okay, we'd be starting somewhere. But we got too much material to cover. I think, I think maybe the only time I let the personal things fly is when I see a fur farm and I'm like, hey guys, you probably shouldn't buy fur. That's the only time in genetics I've ever said that with what those animals go through. But I think otherwise I keep it pretty close and I just kind of talk about my dogs and what I hope everybody can
The
do.
good memes.
I know, yeah. I'll post some class memes to the page. But yeah, I mean, day to day, what would you share with anybody else and just say like, here's what it's actually like? Because I think that's the main point of the show is just like people don't know what we do.
Yeah, I mean, get up early, kind of review your notes a little bit and see what's going on in the day. And sometimes I get excited when I look in the future notes. I'm like, well, we're going to learn about this. I think it's pretty cool when you get to the point where you start to connect,
Mhm.
you start to connect everything. But yeah, you go to class, you learn really cool things, and afterwards you just study, you sit down, you study, or sometimes I see a couple of my other classmates studying, go ahead and talk to them, and we just it's cool to see that community grow and like just talk to each other.
Yeah. No, and I'll kind of end on like the cool thing, and like you have some classmates that like there's a balance between how much they protect their GPA and how much they want to learn, and like I have some that just only want to learn type stuff. I'll toss some names out there because they'll probably join the show eventually. And then I mean I have other students that like the GPA is all that matters. There's a balance between those two. I will say that it's tougher seeing people that are like basically they're called gunners now, right? GPA grade gunners
Oh
is a
yeah.
slang term I've heard now, and I'm like, yeah, I see that as a teacher. I'm like, and as a prof, and I'm like, oh man, just we want you to be ready for the next level, so you got to learn it now because failing at the next level is like that's devastating. There's no way back from that. In a lot of cases, not everyone, but at the end of the day, this is a chance if we're all lucky enough to go and get to this spot, and it is not fortunate for everybody enough to get where we are right now and how lucky that is to be here, um, learning more about the world is number one. It's cool. I think somebody put an example once where it's like, if you know how the physics of resistors and like electricity works, next time you see an electricity box, kind of means something different.
It does. Yeah.
And I mean, learning languages, for example, like I was only 2 classes away from a Spanish minor at Carleton, and I'm glad I know that now, that piece. Like when I can use the language, it's awesome. Like we have a couple grad students from Columbia, for example, and they were like overjoyed. I only told them week 5 though, and they're like, "Wait, you've understood the whole time?" I was like, "Absolutely." But
You feel more connection, don't you?
I
Like
know.
knowing more, you feel more connected.
The world seems a little more familiar suddenly, and
Yeah.
that's the cool part. The practical part goes back to like how you're doing medicine, and yeah, like we're building the foundations for when you take real life pharmacology, real life immunology, and like you'll be ready and like you'll excel. And like I think that's the other. I'm going to plug the state schools again. We have people that go on with the programs, and they do excellent because we do take it serious here, and we do try and prepare because that'll. You brought it up at the beginning where I was like, oh, you just go to a state school. That kind of sucked. But when you get there and you prove yourself, it just the numbers they speak for
Better.
themselves,
Yeah.
and that's what we're all hoping for. But here,
Well, yeah.
you got anything else? Yeah,
I
go
was gonna
ahead.
say you had
Yeah.
like a couple of students that like came back to you that got into the med program that
Yeah.
said like, yeah, this actually helped.
Yeah.
Like for the MCAT and stuff like that. PCAT probably too.
P, DAT, OT. I have a couple optometry
Yeah.
types. But the main thing, like, and this is for all the pre-med type students listening, take the advanced 400 level classes because the MCAT and the DAT, like phys section, will ask about immunology, pharmacology, some cancer stuff,
Yep.
and then it's like I don't have to apply anything. I already know what that drug does, or I already know what that disease is. Question is over. Moving on to the next one, and so I'll drop some names like Addison said that, like a bunch. Like I know. Like my old students, Allison Ainsley, they're all A's. And Aiden, dang it, they all have reported the same thing where it's like, thank goodness we pushed in these 400s that weren't technically required, but they're good for med schools because now in that MCAT, I just flew through it. And they've also reflected that, like, and maybe you'd say the same thing working in the ED at Mayo, you do feel a little more familiar with what's happening around you. And like you just said, when you're more familiar with the world, it opens up a bit more. You're less scared of it, and it's more fun.
Yeah,
So-
no, I agree. I think especially with the type of classes that we're taking at the 400 level classes helps me a little bit more in the ED. Just kind of like seeing different diseases, knowing the pathways to those diseases, which is something I didn't previously have.
Yeah. No, and I'll just do a plug for the class we're currently in with pathophys. I love this. I love death and disease classes. They're really cool, even though it's horrific. And we're coming up on some images that are not going to be. You've seen how uncomfortable I get at the images.
Yes.
It's not going to be.
And it's real life. I mean,
Yeah, it's not going to be anything. Or well, I'll do my best. I'll survive, to say the least. Well, anyway, Monica, thanks so much. I mean, any closing thoughts on anything? Otherwise, like, I think it's a wrap. It's our first one. This is so cool. I know it's gonna be same.
I was like,
Yeah, break the fourth wall. We'll do.
Funny.
I've learned how to edit, and like I can do 2 edits at a time and do
Yeah.
both faces and stuff.
funny.
So awesome.
Thank-
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
Degrees between us, our first episode.